Hey everyone, Taku here and I hope you're doing well. Now, before I get into the details of climbing Mount Fuji, I just wanted to thank everyone for watching my other travel related content on my channel. I know this is a little bit of a stretch from my photography related gear content, but in my travel videos I always try and include things from a photographer's point of view, which also include things like what kind of gear I brought. So I hope other travelers and photographers alike will find this information useful, and so I just wanted to thank everyone for that. With that aside, now let's get to climbing Mount Fuji. Now, just as a precursor, I climbed Mount Fuji on August the 12th and 13th of 2024. So what I'm about to tell you all pertains to the 2024 climbing season. If you are looking for information on the current climbing season, please check the regulations and requirements for the current season, as they may have changed. There are 4 main trails to the summit of Mount Fuji. Now, the 2024 climbing season was different than any other season before it. It was the first season where a number of different rules had applied for the most popular climbing trail to the summit of Mount Fuji, the Yoshida Trail. This specific trail was the victim of its own popularity. With so many tourists taking the trail, garbage was seen strewn around the paths, hikers were seen hiking off the path, and there were so many tourists who were hiking unprepared. Just in 2024 alone, there were tourists seen wearing shorts and t-shirts, sandals, skirts, and even one tourist bringing his suitcase along. Climbing Mount Fuji became so popular that somewhere along the lines, tourists began to think it was an easy climb. They were caught unprepared for the sudden change in weather, they were stranded because of altitude sickness, or they got injured and were needing to be rescued to bring them back down to safety. The primary changes are a new gate, a new climbing fee, a cap on the maximum number of climbers per day, a mountain lodge reservation requirement, and no access to the 5th station with your personal vehicle. A gate was installed at the start of the Yoshida Trail, and this gate closes at 4 p.m., and no climbers are allowed to pass that gate after 4 p.m. unless you have a reservation at a mountain lodge. A 2,000 yen climbing fee is now required for every climber. This fee goes towards the maintenance of the route, emergencies, and so on and so forth. The previous 1,000 yen donation is still being accepted though. No more than 4,000 climbers per day are allowed past that gate. Unless you have a reservation at a mountain lodge, then you are still allowed to enter even if the number of climbers is past 4,000. To climb over multiple days, a reservation at a mountain lodge is now required. This is to prevent bullet climbing. Bullet climbing is when you start your climb in the late evening and end your climb the next morning in time for sunrise at the summit of Mount Fuji. This is dangerous because it not only means you're climbing in the middle of the night, but you're also not letting your body acclimatize to the high altitude. No personal vehicles are allowed at the 5th station. You are now required to go to the 5th station by public transportation. Since a reservation at a mountain lodge was now required, our first challenge was to be able to get a reservation as soon as they opened for the season. With this new rule being implemented, we knew it would be difficult to get one because everyone else was doing the same thing. The reservations for the mountain lodges opened sometime in May. You'll have to pick a mountain lodge to reserve, find out specifically when that mountain lodge opens for reservation, and then be ready at that day and time to reserve your slot. However, we were fortunate enough to grab a spot at Gansomuro, which is located at 3,250 meters above sea level, one of the higher mountain lodges of the 8th station. Our thinking was that we would climb as much as we can on the first day, then minimize our climb in the dark the next day. As it turns out, that didn't really matter too much, as you're really going to just follow the hikers and go with the flow the next day because everyone else is doing the same thing. We stayed overnight at the Fujisan Station Hotel, and this was a pretty decent hotel with a buffet breakfast. We lucked out and got a really nice view of Mount Fuji and the Fuji-Q Highland Amusement Park. This hotel is located within a 5-minute walking distance to the Mount Fuji train station, which is where the bus station is located. We took a bus from the bus stop just outside this Mount Fuji train station, and there is a sign clearly marking where you need to wait to go to the 5th station. The next stop for this bus is Kawaguchiko Station, which is the more popular station that hikers use. So if you want a seat on the bus, taking it from Fujisan Station might be the better option. The bus ride is about an hour, but you can enjoy the scenery from the bus, making the ride seem shorter than it really is. Once we arrived at the 5th station, it was a buzz with people enjoying the area. At 2,300 meters above sea level, the 5th station has everything from restaurants to a shrine to gift shops and even views of Mount Fuji that we didn't get, that it is actually popular for tourists to come to the 5th station even if they have no intention of climbing Mount Fuji. We stayed here for about an hour to acclimatize to the altitude. It was very interesting to see the mix of people here. There were a mix of people who were ready to ascend the mountain, and those that just descended, they looked so exhausted, probably how I looked the very next day. If you donate an extra 1,000 yen, you get this wooden charm that you can stamp with the date of your climb. It just so happens that we started our climb on Mountain Day in Japan. What a coincidence, as I had no idea when I booked the mountain lodge. Upon passing the gate, you show the colored bracelet that you get when you pay for the 2,000 yen entrance fee. When we started our hike, it was so overcast that we couldn't see anything other than the flora directly in front of us. We saw someone coming down riding a horse, which surprised me at first. Apparently, you can rent horses for part of the way down, which now makes sense as to why I saw horses near the gate at the 5th station. The first part of the hike from the 5th station to the 6th station is relatively flat with a slight incline. The second part of the hike to the 6th station opens up to the mountainside with a higher elevation gain. I think somewhere after the 6th station, this hike really becomes a mountain hike. With uneven and sharp rocks underneath, this is no place for sandals. Did I get altitude sickness? Yes, I did. And that's pretty much what slowed me down trying to get to the 8th station mountain lodge, and also coming down part way. My symptoms were headache, a little uncomfortable feeling in my stomach or nausea, and a loss of breath. It was around the 3,000 meter mark, which is somewhere between the 7th and 8th station, which is where I started losing my breath, and it was actually quite noticeable the moment that it happened. When I was hiking, I noticed that I had to actually take breaks now after only a few steps because I could not breathe the same way as I could just a few moments ago. So it was actually pretty interesting to see how your body reacts the instant you reach that 3,000 meter mark. But all you had to do was pace yourself, go at your own pace, and then that allowed me to actually move up slowly, and eventually I did make it up to the summit. I have to admit, I was pretty much exhausted by the time I reached the 8th station mountain lodge, Ganso Muro. That's located 3,250 meters above sea level. We arrived there shortly before 6 p.m. Then we got to our bedding area, and we were actually surprised that many people were already there sleeping for the night. We got dinner around 7 o'clock p.m. They served us curry rice, which was really great, with a couple of dumplings on the side, and they also gave us the breakfast for the next morning that we could take to go. They handed us a piece of paper reminding us that sunrise next morning was at 4:50 a.m. and the wake-up call was at 1:40 a.m. But as it turns out, we really didn't need that wake-up call because I was already awake by about 12:30 a.m. I couldn't sleep with all the noise coming down below, with all the opening and closing of the bathroom doors. So I eventually just woke up and we started heading out at about 1:30 after getting ready, eating a little bit of the breakfast, and then heading out the door. As expected though, as soon as we got out of the door, we were welcomed with a huge line of other hikers coming down from below, making their way up to the top. So it was pretty much a continuous line of hikers going all the way from the bottom to the top. So it's not as if we could have actually gone at our own pace straight to the summit. We were pretty much in line following the hikers in front of us, and we were left to follow the speed of the hikers in front of us. It was, however, a beautiful clear morning, and we did luck out because that day was actually the peak of the Perseus meteor shower. So we were climbing up Mount Fuji in the midnight hours while watching meteor showers or meteors fly by, and we did see quite a few actually during our time up to the summit. So it was such a beautiful moment that we couldn't ask for anything better. We arrived at the summit of Mount Fuji just around 4:30, so just in time to see the sunrise. We were actually surprised to see so many hikers there already. There were restaurants being filled, there was gift shops where people were actually buying things at, and of course a huge line of people already filling up the edges of the mountain area so that they can actually see the sunrise when it comes up above the horizon. We were walking about a little bit, and then we were fortunate enough to actually grab a seat right at the edge thanks to some other hikers opening up space for us. So we managed to grab some beautiful footage of the sun peeking up from the clouds at the horizon, and we couldn't have asked for anything better. It was such a beautiful moment that we would never forget up there. After the sun had risen, even with the sun shining on us, it was actually pretty cold up there, so we actually went into the restaurant, grabbed a bowl of miso soup, a small bowl of miso soup for 1,000 yen, which is probably the most expensive miso soup that I've ever bought. But oh boy, was it ever so good. It warmed us up so fast, and it was actually a really good moment to have miso soup up there. What people might not realize is that the peak of Mount Fuji is actually not where you just climbed to. The peak of Mount Fuji is actually located on the other side of the crater. The Ohatchi Meguri Trail refers to the loop trail that follows the ridge around the crater. It supposedly takes about 90 minutes to complete the entire loop, but it actually took us about 3 hours, which included the roughly 30-minute wait time to hike to the very top of the summit, which was at the 3,776 meter mark. The altitude sickness actually really got to me the second time while I was going on this loop trail, that it actually slowed me down quite a bit. I was feeling nauseous. I was losing breath so easily that I could literally only take like 5 steps before I had to stop and take a breath again, and then walk a few more steps, stop, and so on and so forth. So that is actually why it took us so long to actually go around the entire loop. We eventually made it to the 3,776 meter mark. It was such a beautiful day with clear blue skies. We couldn't have asked for a better day to do it on. So we climbed back down and made our way back to the start of the ridge loop trail, and then eventually made our way back down to the 5th station. Now I was so exhausted and spent by that point that after completing the loop ridge trail, that I put my camera away and I didn't even take a single picture or video with my Nikon camera. I may have taken a couple with my iPhone, but that's pretty much it. The next time I actually had that camera out was at the 5th station mark, so I did miss quite a bit of footage on the way back down. So after you get back down to the 5th station, that is pretty much it. You have successfully completed the hike to the summit of Mount Fuji. Congratulations! We milled around that area, cleaned up a bit, went to the bathroom, maybe had some charcoal ice cream along the way as well. And then we actually took the bus back down to the bus station, and where we just relaxed back at the hotel. Because I knew the hike was going to be stressful, I tried to minimize my camera gear so that I had more space for my hiking gear, like my rain gear and water. So here's a list of items that I brought up. The Nikon Z8 camera, paired with one of my favorite lenses is the Nikon Z24-120 f4S lens. Then I had the Sennheiser MKE 400 microphone with the wind muffler on, and I did bring the Peak Design camera clip, which I attached to the f-stop Ajna hiking bag that I used to hike up Mount Fuji. Now this was great because it was the perfect size to fit my camera as well as my hiking gear, and I used the camera clip to actually attach directly onto the strap itself, and then the camera went on the strap on the camera clip there. So whenever I needed to hike, I had both hands free because my camera was attached to the strap here. When I wanted to take a picture or take a quick video, I could release the camera from the camera clip, take some pictures or video, and then immediately put it back onto my strap again and continue on hiking with both hands free. So this combination worked really well, and it's something that I can definitely recommend if you yourself are wanting to hike up mountains or whatnot and have a camera to document your hike up the mountain as well. So the Nikon Z8 with the Z24-120 f4S lens is actually one of my favorite combinations for traveling. This lens, I actually did another review video up on it. You can check that out over here. But it is so versatile, so light, and I can definitely recommend it because it's also so sharp that it's a very good all-around lens that I use anytime when I'm just walking around in the city as well. That 24 millimeters is able to get me really great landscape shots, but I'm also able to zoom in quite tightly at 120 millimeters, that it works both as a telephoto and wide angle lens as well. So that is my recommended lens for traveling all around. I did bring the Sennheiser MKE 400 microphone with the wind muffler on because I wanted a lot better audio than what my camera was capable of recording, especially up high in the mountains when it gets really windy. You're never going to hear anything clear when the wind happens. So this wind muffler actually does a great job, and the MKE 400 does a great job of picking up the audio as well. So that combination worked really well in my case too. The one thing that I didn't bring, and in hindsight that I could have brought, was a tripod. A tripod would have allowed me to make longer exposures at night during the mountain lodge and even at the summit of Mount Fuji. But I didn't bring one, so I had to resort to putting my camera down on rocks or ledges and hope that it didn't move during that long exposure. I could have easily just brought my Peak Design travel tripod, the carbon fiber version, and pretty much stuck it on my Ajna hiking bag, because that hiking bag did not weigh me down one single bit during my hike up to the summit. So there you have it, the adventures of climbing Mount Fuji during the 2024 season. Have you ever climbed Mount Fuji? Do you like to climb mountains? Let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to hear your stories or questions if you have any. Thanks for watching my video. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.